Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Eastern Shore Talk, your podcast for all things self-care and movies. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're glad to have you. This is episode 65. I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And I thought Cathy and I could talk about something that we've kind of dibble-dabbled in here and there throughout the history of...
Dibble-dabble.
that's an official podcast term, dibble-dabble.
Dibble-dabble. That sounds like they came from the Flintstones.
Or it sounds like a piece of candy.
I like it. I like it.
So we've been touching on this here and there throughout the history of the podcast. So I thought we'd actually, make an episode about socializing and how socializing, finding the balance in socializing and how that kind of works together with self-care.
There's a term. It's called social self-care.
Okay. Well, see, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either. So I did a little research.
We'll learn that. So
social self-care.
Before we get into that, let's do a little check-in and find out what's been going on with the Castle.
Well, it's a new week, which means there was another graduation.
Another huge life event in the Castle house.
Yeah, every week there's a major life event, and I'm excited, and then I think I'm gonna lose my mind, and then I do lose my mind, and then I need my social self-care to pick myself back up. So anyway, the youngest of the Castle graduated on Wednesday, and from our old Easton High School. So he's an alumni now, and that's always just, it's cool. It's cool that I've had 4 kids graduate from there. And then Marty was ready to kill me because I volunteered us for the after grad party.
Which we initiated. Our class was the very first.
Our class initiated. So I'm like, how can I not do it, right?
On the 40th anniversary, yeah.
On the 40th anniversary. Well, don't you know? I mean, back in the day when you and I were there, you got a painter's cap and a ruler, and you might have won a little pop-up alarm clock. I mean, it's big time now. But yeah, so we did that, and I didn't think very well because the next day we had to be in Baltimore at 8:30 in the morning. So we had like 3 hours and 45 minutes of sleep, which was not the best self-care. And then we had a big grad party on the weekend. So I'm like, whoo, went to the Oriole game on Sunday and had the most amazing seats ever that somebody gave us. And they won, so that was good. So we haven't taken a breath. Moving into next week's major life event. Yeah.
And your oldest is in the process of...
That'll be next week's major life event. Yeah. Right. He'll settle on his new home on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So each week, new life event. How about you?
So pretty typical, real crazy busy. I tell you something, I don't know where, I can't remember. I was watching something and these 2 people were talking. I don't know if it was a documentary or what it was, but the one person asked the other person, they said, when you start walking with the Lord, how do you know when it's helping you? How do you know when it starts to impact your life? And the other person said, because before I lived a life about what I was lacking. Now I live a life about what's in abundance in my life. He's like, and I thought, I was like, yeah, I was like, man, I never would have. It makes sense when he said it. I was like, wow, that sounds like such a great way to describe it. Like you know, not just with our spirituality, but just our mindset in general. We just feel like the world is crumbling when we feel like we're lacking X, Y, and Z. But when we have a mindset more geared towards gratitude and what we realize that we do have in our lives, it's night and day. But he kind of shifted that towards the spiritual side. He's like, because before, I found the Lord, it was about what I was lacking. Now it's about what's in abundance. And I was just like, that's so simple and so, perfect, really. Yeah, we are just about have booked all of our tables for the Eastern Shore Self-Care Expo. We just have 1 or 2 left, which is a good thing. So
you have to start a wait list.
We'll have to start a wait list in case people want to drop out, which, that
life happens sometimes.
Yeah, but we'll have to deal with that as it goes. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm gearing up for vacation, so this
Mm.
week of work has been even more so because I'm trying to kind of do next week's work ahead, as much as I can ahead of time. In other words, anticipate things, and I try to set it up so I don't have any of my jobs go while I'm out. That way, if anybody has any questions, I don't.
Now, will the shop close down, or is somebody else in there
No,
for
one of the guys from the other store, they'll kind of
it?
rotate because there's three of them at the other store,
Okay.
so they'll take turns covering next all of next week.
Did you
So
tell them what the requirements were? Like they have to fill out lots of post-it notes and uh, dance
it's so
around
funny.
building.
I leave them this big sheet of like, okay, here are my jobs, what's going on, and I lay it all out on the table with the folders and all that. So it's really kind of paint my numbers. They can,
I should come in there and randomly put post-it notes with information down all over your place while you're gone.
it's so funny, Kathy. I would say three-quarters of the customers that come into my store ask me about the post-it notes, and they
It's your
say
trademark.
one lady came in today. She's like, oh, I don't know how to take all these post-it notes. Either you're really organized or you don't have no idea what you're doing, and you need all these notes to remind you. I said, well, it's more the first than the other. And she's like, what's with all the colors? I said, colors don't mean anything. It's just I buy a multicolored pack, and that's just how they come off the thing. Um,
I'm seeing the
I get
colors
more
too.
comments about my post-it notes than I do about the stuff in the store sometimes.
That's funny.
And most people are like, wow. Oh, so I get a lot of, oh, that looks like my desk at home, or I do the same thing. And I'll have people say,
So we need
why
a
don't
post-it sponsor now.
yeah, that'd be great. I have people say, why don't you use the computer? And I do that too for like scheduled installs. I said, but at least I don't have to scroll through anything. Everything's right here in front of me. And
Well,
I've got
yeah, it's
not only do I
visual.
have not only do I have post-it notes on my table, but I have different piles of folders that are different that are different parts of the process of getting installed. So each pile has a different
You've
meaning.
seen my desk. Don't, I can't talk. I have so many folders and stuff, but ugh. Yeah, I can't make everything digital. It's just not who I am. I have to
Yeah.
touch. I have to touch things and look
And
at
I
things.
like it all in front of me. It's just I don't know. And I do. I mean, I use the computer to some degree, and it does help. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be a little bit more hectic this week because I'm just trying to get the. I'm trying to cram some of the things from next week into this week before I go.
Yeah.
Um, so it's going to be a little funky this week, but I do that every year. Um, it's so Kathy, I got to tell you, every year this time when I go to the beach, I think I told you the story. I've been doing this kind of ritual at this time every year for the past 7 or 8 years. And the first year I went, I forgot so many things because I just said I'll just throw whatever I think I'm going to need in my suitcase and go. And I forgot a belt, I forgot underwear. So I had to buy all that stuff at the outlets down there in Ocean City. So I make a list now. Like I've already made it. And normally I would have packed by now all the things that I don't need this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff that whatever. I've not packed a thing because I've been so my mind has been so about the expo, and I think I told you this that I've thought little about this vacation, and it kind of snuck up on me like, oh, so now I literally leave next Monday morning to drive down to Ocean
So
City.
I
So
would like to know the text of what you forgot.
like
I
to know
got to know.
what
Inquiring minds have to know. I got to know what you end up forgetting.
I've not forgotten anything since that first year. That's why I make the
Even though
list.
you're waiting until last minute, you think you
Yes.
won't forget
But
anything.
as I'm making the list, I'm always worried that I'm going to forget to put something on the list. So my anxiety is always it's
You know,
always there.
we do that when we go camping because there's such regular things that you take, and I have a list, and I just kind of like look through it and make sure I have X, Y, Z. Because I've done the same thing where I've had to go to the daggone outlets and get underwear, or whatever, and
Yep.
you're like, how do I forget underwear? But it just
Well,
happens.
because the funny thing was, is like usually the first day I'll wear a swimsuit because I go right to the inlet to go on the beach right away. So I don't need a belt for that. So I wouldn't have had my belt on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I forgot. But underwear, I don't have no idea why I forgot that.
And
I was just kind of just wanting to hurry up and get down there.
that's necessary.
Yeah, that should be like one of the top things on the list. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. I'm in vacation pregame prep week.
There you
this
go.
week. So,
Nice. I'm a little jelly.
but yeah, we thought we would talk about. I thought we would do a little talking about socializing and how socializing um, can be a good thing, a bad thing. Trying to find the balance of socializing for and with self care. And it's funny, Kathy. We've kind of touched on this because I've kind of talked about
Yeah.
my story, and one of my kind of gauges where I can kind of tell my progress in my journey is that I'm more social now than I was previously, because I'm no longer living in that trauma response that I was. My life was a trauma response for so long, and
Right.
I was probably a one, and out of 1 to 10 on the scale of socialization.
And where are you now?
I'm probably a 4 or 5. At 5 being like just
Oh,
an average social
yeah.
person. I'm
I'm gonna
kind of
get,
in.
we're gonna work towards 6.
Well, but see, well, I've got a visual thing. We'll talk about that.
All right.
But so, and I know we've kind of kidded about how we're different at different
Yeah.
ends of the social spectrum, and that's true. Um, and it is. It's funny. Like I've told you before, Kathy. I kind of part of me scratches my head and says, I don't know how she does that. And the other one's like, wow, it would be kind of cool to have the at least the ability to do that. So, and that got me thinking, partly because of my journey, and partly because people are just different. There's different people have different social needs and wants. Um, so I just thought we'd kind of go into that. But you're saying that now there's called social self care.
Yeah, I didn't even know. But
I didn't
uh,
either.
so I have a definition. Social self care. I like it. I like it. I didn't even know there was something called social self care. Social self care involves nurturing your social connections and relationships, recognizing that healthy social interactions are vital for overall well being and mental health. It's about consciously making time for socializing, building relationships, and fostering a sense of belonging. There you go. Now we know.
So
So listen, we should have known that back in school. So when they said, Jay, you're talking too much, or Twig, you're talking too much, you said, this is social self care. This is good for my mental health and well being.
now I will say, and I'm going to show you this. See if you
Oh my God, he's got the
can you see
dopamine.
that.
Avoidance and dependence. Sweet
So
spot. Okay.
I just kind
Okay.
of put it on a scale of 1 to 10. And for those of you who are not watching, I've got a kind of a gauge that kind of shows a scale of 1 to 10. 0 being well where I was, very
Okay.
unhealthy place, and then 10 being dependence, like it's an unhealthy place on that end. And but the big chunk in the middle is the sweet spot, and we're all going to be, even those who are not on either unhealthy end, are going to be in a different area within that sweet spot. Because to me, the sweet spot's pretty wide in the scale. Um,
Now,
but I
see, I
think
would look at that scale as introvert extrovert scale.
uh, okay. Now here's my thing. I've always wondered about like because whenever the term introvert, I've heard it, I've always taken it as a negative connotation.
Mm,
Like it's not what you want to be.
right. I can see that. I can see that.
So
And you know what else is funny about the word? Well, either one. If you're an extrovert or introvert, people are going to say something about both of them. One is you're too quiet, and one is shut up. I mean, it's
right,
going to be taken, or you're too extreme. Are
yeah.
you? Well, yeah. Why do we do that? Because it's really not about that. And the funny thing to me is, and probably my younger days, I was more on the introvert side of the scale, and then as I got older, and my job probably is why I got to be more extrovert. I don't know. But what is always funny to me is that sometimes I get it wrong. Like I would have thought back in the day you were an extrovert. There's some other people are like they're an extrovert. They're like, heck no, I'm an introvert. I hate it. But I couldn't see it. I didn't know.
You know why? Yeah, because especially younger, like what you
Yeah.
remember me as younger. At least for me, that's what I wanted you to think.
I would have bet all the marbles. I would be marble less.
That
Because
I was doing my job. I was
you did
projecting
a
what I
good
wanted.
job.
Yeah,
I mean, you were funny. You were behind the scenes, like instigating a bit. You were fun. I'm not saying you're not fun now.
Well, I'm not as funny. I'll say that myself. I'm not as funny now, but I'm happier. Everyone else around me might not be, but I am.
You did, man. I don't know. You made me laugh. That's all I'm gonna say.
Like I said before, Kathy, it was all. I figured, hey, look, everybody likes to laugh. So if I'm the guy that makes everybody laugh, they're not going to see the crappy me that I know is really in there. So I was like, let me put this front on and trick everybody because everybody likes to laugh.
Which
Nobody's going to get mad at me for being funny, except the teacher.
no, and they did.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe in a way though, it did you some good because if somebody else laughed, you're probably laughing, and it probably did help in some ways, even if temporarily.
Well, here's the thing, Kathy, is I was thinking about that kind of makeshift scale I was talking about. I drew. I know for me, with the self isolation, antisocial behavior that I was doing for so long,
You're
it
not
was
antisocial. I mean, well, when I think of antisocial, I think of
I was
no, but I think of that more like a personality disorder in the field I'm in, like somebody that does not care. But you cared a
well,
lot.
yeah.
You just
I
weren't
may be
as social.
misusing the word from a definition as far as a
Yeah,
diagnosable.
yeah.
So, but I did avoid social contact at all costs on purpose.
Hmm.
Like it was an intention. Like it was my very like I lived by that intention for the longest time.
Sure.
So,
Well, and you had
um,
people you trust hurt you,
right.
so it makes
But
sense.
my thing is here. This is just my opinion and just some guy that's not clinically you know trained. I'm just a regular person. I think my thought is that, especially using my own experiences as kind of a gauge for this, is that in my mind, I created a consequence. In other words,
Mm,
my thought was if I'm social, the consequence is, in my mind, I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to say something stupid. They're not going to accept me. Any number of things. I created a consequence in my mind that may or may not have been the truth. Because, when you're younger, kids can be
because we
mean.
make up stories.
So, and I also think on the dependence end, there are folks out there that like they literally cannot be happy if they're not engaged with someone. Like
So with that meaning, I
they,
define that as somebody puts so they haven't done all the work. They're depending on other people to make them happy,
yes,
right?
yes,
And so you can be
they've
more,
created a consequence in their head as well.
yeah,
It's different.
which is dangerous. It's like just
Yes,
like don't put all your eggs in one basket because
yes,
you're gonna get disappointed, right?
yes,
But which doesn't mean that if you're totally extroverted that's what you're doing. But some people can do that.
right.
Is my
Like I know you and I kid about your socialness, but
hmm
I don't. At least what I know, I don't believe you are social. In other words, like I made the joke maybe last week or the week before. I think Kathy goes on vacations just to meet new people. I don't actually think that's the truth. That was literally a joke. But I think you're very open to socializing in those settings.
yeah,
I don't think you say in your mind, okay, I've got to, I'm
right,
required to meet. I don't think that at all. But there are folks out there that,
yeah.
whether it's a trip, whether it's, around their hometown, whatever it is, that they have talked themselves into thinking they're only happy
Well,
when they're around others.
think about this too. Social media kind of played a role in that, right? I
Yep.
don't hear people. Ugh, let me try again. I don't hear people talk about it as much lately, but I'm sure it's still a thing. That, and maybe it's younger, maybe it's old. I don't know. Like people, how many friends you have on social media? Like I don't. I'm not. I don't even know how many people I have as friends, and I couldn't even tell you if somebody dumped me. I mean, every now and then I'll be like, dang, they dumped me. But people count that stuff.
Yep.
Like that's important, or they think that
Yeah.
they have value based on that, which is, good Lord, not true.
They're dependent on
Yeah.
the feedback of others, whether it's in person, whether it's
Yeah.
online, for that positive reinforcement.
Well,
As fool's gold as it is.
I think this is a good way then to segue, Jay, because I got articles. Um, I want to say two things. One is read another article from Psychology Today that really was talking about this social connection, this social self-care, if you will, but really was linking it to loneliness. And remember, we talked about that
Yep.
podcast ago. Wait, would you call it tiddly
Dibble dabble. We dibble
dibble
dabble.
dabble or whatever? We dibble
I
dabble.
think we actually did an actual thing. Yeah.
So this kind of goes hand in hand with that loneliness thing, really, where we know that the Surgeon General had said that loneliness was a human epidemic, that and that was really brought to light by the pandemic and people being more isolated, and that we are, rather you think you are not, we're social beings. We are social beings. So anyway, this article kind of went into the fact that we minimize social self-care. Like, we tick off all the things. Oh, you got to eat right, you got to exercise, you got to sleep well. We get all that, but we really push social connection down to the bottom of that self-care list for whatever reason that we do that. So this article was saying we got to stop that, because it is just as important as those other things. And if you want to be a research nerd, which I won't go through all the data, but there's a lot of physical health conditions that are connected to lack of social connectivity. And it's alarming. It's huge. It's large. I mean, to dementia, to, heart, stroke. And it might seem silly. You're like, how do they know that? But it is. The research is there. So, yeah, so that is that. So that is that. That's what I wanted to say about that. That it is part of self-care, but we don't prioritize it.
So here's what's interesting. Because, and this has actually been one of the topics that I've really thought a lot about once I decided we wanted to do this topic. And I think with anything in the self care wellness world, there has to be a balance. I
Yes.
think um, having social connections and social activities as part of your self care regimen is very valuable. But again, and that like in that that little drawing I showed, the sweet spot's really wide. In other words, excluding the unhealthy extremes of good and bad, the middle chunk of that scale is where the quote unquote healthy is, the balance is. And we're all going to be at different points in that thing. And my question was this, Cathy,
Mm.
you being the clinician of the podcast.
Uh-oh. We got a caller. Oh, mercy. Sorry about
This is Joe from Milwaukee. Can you repeat
that.
the
Hi.
definition of social self care?
You would like I'm the only person. Okay, kids, if you can see us, this
This
is
is a landline.
a landline. Okay, we
That's
used to have a
that's an
cord on it.
updated landline.
Used to have a cord that we would wind and get in trouble because it was tangled. Anyway, so
So
go ahead.
here's I've got a question and a statement at the same time.
This low budget podcast in the background.
I tend to believe that where we lie within that, so again, forgetting the two extremes, but just talking about the sweet spot, that wide sweet spot, where we lie within that sweet spot is greatly affected by our surroundings, our environment, our upbringing. And so my question is, that's kind of, there's probably several answers to this question. Like, what what makes people's social desire different from the next, aside from environment and surroundings and upbringing, that kind of thing. Um,
Well,
because there's a reason why there might be somebody at a 3, and there's a reason why somebody else might be at an 8, and they both could be relatively healthy for the most part, but that's a pretty wide gap.
but back to this article that I'm reading. I mean, this makes sense, but there was two things that it said that really caught my eye. And one, it said we are drowning in our day-to-day responsibilities. Rather, it's work, people work from home or people are in the office, we've made ourselves available all the time. We have the cell phone that makes us available all the time, the computers, back to back Zoom meetings or whatever meeting we have. So we're burnt out at the workplace, and we don't, we're not having enough connection at work either. And then at home, we have all kinds of responsibilities. Kids are not just in rec ball, they're on travel teams. And, there's this, that. We got to go to dance. We got to play the piano. We got
So
to
there's
do,
a social aspect to that. Yeah.
we got to cook dinner. We got to, so everybody's maxed out with overwhelmedness. Is that a word? And they are not finding the time for social connection. Or maybe they're sick of people by then and
That was
they're
gonna, yeah,
done peopling.
yeah.
So
I was gonna ask, does today's setup with social media
yeah.
and, like you say, Zoom, now there are so many more ways to be social than there were 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So
But
now, is it's just kind of organic, whether it's,
what's the quality of it, right? And I'm guilty of this too.
yes, words on a
I mean,
screen on a post is different from standing face to face with somebody, for sure.
we went out to dinner the other night with, I don't know if it was how many kids were with us. And what's everybody doing? Everybody's on their cell phones. I was on mine too. I mean, what is that? Like we should put it down and talk, have a conversation. But we're so programmed to pick that up, or my watch is dinging right now. What is that? And then you get spun off into something else. And then you're distracted. You're not having the genuine connection.
I think I like what you said, Kathy, about the quality. I think in today's world, if we were to just assign a value from 1 to 10 of how the average American, is social, and we include all ways, online, in person, all of it, it's probably higher than it's ever been. There are more ways to be social, so their socialness is probably higher overall. But the quality of what they're getting socially is probably the lowest it's ever been, because they're not getting full context, they're not getting human emotion, they're not
Yeah.
getting all that part of it. So it's spread. They're getting more of worse.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, this article says this is now become an uphill battle. You know, ignoring our need for social connection is like trying to grow fruit on a plant, but forgetting to water or fertilize it. It's true. We're not. We just want it to happen, but you got to work at it. And how
Yeah.
many people say, well, so and so doesn't call me, like everybody's waiting for somebody else to do that. And that's a dangerous game too, because it is a two-way street.
And it's come to the point now, Kathy, where I'll just say the younger generation finds value in the the online socialness of complete strangers.
Right. Like playing a
It,
video game and then becoming friends with that gamer that's in another state.
so you used the word loneliness earlier, and that's an interesting thing to me. I'm and I don't mean to what I'm about to say. I don't mean this to put myself down. I'm an anomaly in the loneliness
Yeah, but I don't.
category.
You're. Go ahead. I
Um,
feel like loneliness. That word is misunderstood. But go ahead.
yes,
Go ahead.
when I say loneliness, I'm thinking of what I feel the public feels the definition is generally, whether it's right or wrong. I think they feel like physical loneliness.
Like you live
That's
alone. Like
well, not just but like just
you're alone
moments of being physically alone.
by
Well,
yourself.
yes, I think that's what the general public thinks the word loneliness
I
just
agree.
applies to. That's not the way. That's not the actual. There's broader than that.
Right. Right. I agree. Like if you're lonely, that's a negative word. It's that you're just by yourself. And that's not the loneliness I'm talking about.
Because I ask myself this question all the time. Because I self reflect a lot, and I think back
Hmm.
as a gauge to kind of see where I am now versus where I was, and I'm like, okay, I got from A to B to do, and so long story short, I use the general overall term of loneliness, and to me, and Kathy, I've never, hardly ever in my life, been one who's been physically felt alone.
Me
It,
either.
it's
Maybe that's one common thing we have.
lonely in other ways, absolutely for sure. But and I'm thinking, is that a product of how I grew up? Probably to some degree,
Well,
and
you
because
learned how to. It's just like,
but it served me well
yeah,
eventually.
you
It was it
you
was
learn to rely on
unhealthy early
yourself.
on. Yes.
Like if somebody asked me if I was going to drive to the outlets by myself and shop by myself, that must be lonely and horrible. To me, I'd be like, heck yeah, because if I'm in that car, I'm blasting my music, I'm horribly singing to myself. I don't have to worry about if I'm holding somebody up, with time, and I can do what I want. Like I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. But I know a lot of other people that are like, well, that's horrible. That must be so lonely.
I think we all have a tank. I'll call it the social tank, and just like a gas tank in your car, we want it. We would like for it to be full all the time, to be full of gas, and but we can't. If we put too much gas in it, it overflows. It doesn't do any good. I think we all have this gauge, and my social tank is very small. In other words, I socialize every day at work with
Right.
customers. I got customers coming in. I'm into people. I serve people all day, every day, 5 days a week. So, um, and then I go to the gym 5 or 6 days a
Yeah.
week, and there's always someone there that I'm socializing with. I
Even in my
socialize with the
movies are
people at the
around
movie
people.
theater.
I was gonna say we make this thing up like you're a good social experiment. Like what? Can't go to the movies by yourself. I'm sure I've even thought of that. I don't think I ever have gone to movies by myself. Like, but who made that up? You're not by yourself. You're in a movie theater full of
Yeah,
people. And according to Jay Watson's rules, you're not supposed to be talking anyway. So
yeah, because Jay Watson was the ones that created that rule.
he did. It's Jay Watson's rule of movie viewing. You got a tiny little book.
But it just it comes back to that question, and maybe there is no real answer. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, like but to get, I know I'm kind of jumping around here. I think my having, in a lot of ways, isolated myself when I was younger and not had a family foundation to be part of my socialness. Um, when I was younger, I struggled and it was unhealthy for sure.
Right.
But what I have learned now, like as I got older, is, and I think it's important for all of us, and this is where the balance comes in, that there's a reason why it's called self care. It's not called social care, although there is social self care. It's because you have to find the value in what you're doing by yourself and for yourself. That to me, just being objective, trying to leave my experiences out of it,
Yeah.
that has to have a higher priority than how many times am I socializing with other people. Is there value in that? Absolutely. But the inside self part has to have priority over what I'm getting from others.
Yeah.
Although there is a, in moderation and in balance, a value to that for us feeling good about ourselves as well. But there, to me, the priority has to be the things we do that are us, that are me time, that are us time, because that we're gonna. To me, we get more out of that deeper and more substantially than I'm going to go have dinner with a friend of mine for an hour.
Well, you just said it. We need time to do deep work, and you can't do deep work unless you plan it and you have some time to yourself to really think through things.
Yes,
You need deep work time. We
yeah,
all need it.
yeah. The
More
deep
now than
stuff comes
ever.
alone.
Yeah, it does.
Although, and there's value in socializing for sure.
Balance. You're back to balance
Yes,
again. And I think people don't realize they do need that alone time. They do need that. You need to process things and think. You know, but there's two words I wanted to go back to, well, one was the loneliness word. I think there's a difference between, well, you could be lonely, meaning, oh my gosh, I wish I want to hang out with somebody right now. Maybe, you're whatever. You want to hang out with somebody. Then there's social isolation where there's somebody that feels isolated or is because of a variety of things. And maybe they really are lonely. But you can also be lonely and have everybody around you. And I can tell you, for example, Saturday night when I'm cleaning up after a party of 40 people, I was feeling pretty lonely when they're all laughing and having fun and I'm cleaning up. I felt very lonely, even though I was surrounded by a bunch of people. So, it's just a weird word. And you just got to do the work and figure out where you are, maybe on your continuum or whatever, and
Yeah,
it works for you.
it's
But you do need people. You do need people.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'll be honest, and I've talked about this before. It was kind of a revelation for me that I was seeing the true value in the organic social moments I was having that I was avoiding in the past.
Hmm.
And again, I am not. I'm never going to be a social butterfly. In other words, I'm not going to be
Yeah.
one that's going to leave my house and say, I'm going to go to this place because I want to be around people. I'm not that way. However, through the organic, normal course of what I do each and every day, different places I go, I talk to people at all those places. That never happened before.
Yeah.
That's where I've gone from a
That's good.
one to a
That's
four or
good.
five. Um,
You got your
and,
growth.
and it's a physical thing too. I can feel it physically, not just my mindset. But like I would go grocery shopping or wherever, Kathy, and I'd walk with my head down to avoid even eye contact with anybody. Like I would literally walk for the most part because I would know, okay, I go to Target, I'm going to go get this, this, and this. I knew where I was walking, so I'd walk instead of having my head up and just kind of observing the world around me. I was like this walking around, and that now I'm
Yeah.
like, and look, I'm not looking for people to talk to. I'm just not. I'm never going to be that. But however, if I go to Target now that I've got my head up, if I see someone that I know, whereas before I would wait for them to come to me,
Yeah.
I'm very likely to go say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" So
Oh,
and
how
so,
are you?
and
Which is,
everywhere and I use Ocean City as an example because that was kind of a really out of the way kind of circumstance there because you know, now I look at it now, and it's because it's actually easier for me there because I'm never going to see them again. I run into them; they're strangers on vacation, and there's no fear of rejection because I'm never going to see them again. Whereas here in this small town, if you are likely to run into somebody again somewhere. So, but I mean, it's that sweet spot is wide. Um,
well,
but
and saying something to somebody, I mean, we have these mirror neurons. Science will tell us, like, if you smile at somebody else, or, that's going to make them feel a certain way, or, hey, how are you? Or even on this Kevin Hines documentary that I was watching yesterday that we're going to be filming later in the month, the professional there said he likes to do this experiment where he asks people, what made you smile today? And he said it changes people's moods, to think about that. And it brings a positive memory, hopefully, to them, and then it changes their mood, to be more grateful.
It's cool, Kathy, and that reminded me of something because this shifts my mood in the gym. There's a young man in the gym, and he also happens to work at Hearthstone Gym here in
Mm,
Easton. But on the days where he's not working and he's in there working out, do you know what he does?
mm.
When he arrives there, he goes around to everybody in the gym and gives him a fist bump that says hello. The moment he gets there,
Oh,
he
wow.
walks around the whole gym
Mm.
and says, "Hey," he calls me OG. He's like, "What's up, OG?" And he gives me, and he walks. He does that. I watched him. He goes around to everybody and says hello to everybody he knows when he arrives, and when he leaves, he's like, "Oh man, I'm out here. Take care. Have a good weekend." He do the same thing in reverse when he's leaving. And this is like a young man, probably Tristan's age in his
Mhm.
20s. I'm still going to say mid 20s. But I'm like,
That's nice.
and it's a cool moment when I'm like that.
You're
Whoever
like,
number one,
you're like,
whoever
I'm
raised
the
that young man, whoever
OG.
raised that young man to do that deserves a lot of credit because he literally comes in the gym. and
I
walks around before he does anything working out. He says hello to everybody he knows, and then he'll go do his exercise. And then when he's done, if you're still there, he's going to come give you a fist bump and say, "Hey man, take it easy. Good to see you. Have a good weekend. Whatever." He
Aw,
does that every time,
that's
and I'm like,
nice.
"That's impressive."
That is impressive.
I'm like, I'm not wired to do that, but I'm like, wow, that's a really that's such a cool thing. Um, that just that right there is going to take him places because, like me, older folks that are, maybe somebody who might consider hiring him or whatever are going to notice that and be like, this kid is very engaging, and that just and it makes it's a cool moment for me when he does that. So everybody he does that to probably feels like, oh, he feels special because he takes the time to come say hello when he comes
Well,
into the gym.
and the day he's not there, it doesn't do that. People probably miss that.
Yeah.
Used to that. Yeah.
So
You think this would be a good time to talk about some ways people can add social connectivity to their
yep,
life?
absolutely. Yep. Little tips and
Um,
tricks. Yep.
so you just said one, the gym, gym or sports teams, but I think like self-care in general, where we're like, oh, find the things you like to do. That's what you say. What do you like to do?
Yep.
Whether it's I like to walk, or I want to watch birds, or I like to look at the water, whatever your self-care thing. I like to take a bath, like drink tea, whatever it is. It's the same thing with this social connectivity. You have to find things to be social. So, I
I
mean,
love that, Kathy, because if we're in those environments, we have a built-in topic of conversation already. There's something in common.
yeah.
If we're at the gym, we've got that. Whoever it is, you've got that to talk about.
So I think that after I'm thinking about this and research this a little bit, I'm thinking with social connectivity, we got to do the same things we do with the other things. So if we think about sleep, you've done an analysis of your sleep, and you're like, I need to do X, Y, and Z, or I need to not drink caffeine after 2 p.m., or I need to turn off all the electronics, or I need to make my room colder. Like, you figure that out so that you can sleep better, hopefully, right? Um, you don't like your diet. What do? You take an inventory. Every man in the world can say they cut out soda and then lose 50 pounds. I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic. But, what kind of things do you need to do? Like, we know. But when it comes down to social connection, I don't ever hear anybody with a plan for that. So just like those other activities, we got to figure out what it is to fill that cup to have human connection. So yeah, go to the gym, um, community events. You could come on our September expo and walk around and talk to somebody at a table.
Yep.
That's social connection.
Yep.
Um, Volunteering, some people are into that, some people aren't.
Church is a good way too.
Church, 100%. What about,
Church might be the king of social.
well, and sometimes, I don't know, I do hear people getting stubborn about, like, waiting for people to come to them. It is a two-way street. You got to reach out to other people. Rather it's, if you're a texter, maybe, hey, been thinking about you, so and so. I heard your dad's in the hospital. I hope everything's okay. Like, throwing those little things out to stick.
So,
And
so
then,
here's a question that popped in my head, Kathy. How important is taking stock in where you are in your life as as a gauge to how you're going to approach being social? What I mean by that is we have to have determined, okay, I'm lacking in the social aspect of my life. You have to self-reflect to determine
yeah,
that. But on the other end, you have to. This is where it gets tough on the dependence end. I don't think those folks are likely to say, "I think I'm just hanging around people too much." That's where it gets
well,
tough.
but
But
here's where I think it gets tough too, Jay, is what if you're hanging around the wrong people? Because there's a
yes,
lot of people that hang around the wrong people, and they're just with it because
because they're not alone. Yeah,
they're not alone. And that's a whole nother thing. You got to take inventory of your relationships. And if there's something that's got a little bit of toxicity, you might want to figure out how to back out of that. I know that's not easy, but You don't, when people get old like you and I hear people saying more, I don't need that. I don't need that anymore. I don't need to align myself with that. But that's hard when you're vulnerable, young,
Yep.
whatever,
And
lonely.
what's a big key in getting to a point where we have a strong enough sense of self that we can start realizing that these things are unhealthy for us, especially relationships? It's that self care. If we're doing our self care, including the healthy social self care, which, like you said, Kathy, it's the same approach should be taken with that as all the rest of them. And to me, the things that make self care work the best are consistency and intention. It has to be consistent. You have to practice it to get better at being a good, healthy person. You have to practice it consistently and with the intention of doing that, with the goal of this is for me being better and healthy and just a stronger sense of self.
This article too also says you got to, social connections can provide you a sense of belonging, help you reduce stress, and can help improve physical health. But it also says to plan face to face time. So like that young man that you're talking about in the gym, he's planned that out. That's his intention to come in there and
Yeah,
be like, hey OG, whatever. Good for him. Because that's doing something.
yeah.
So, you gotta put yourself out there.
I wonder if that's a tool, like he there's an intention beyond what we could imagine that he does that for, which would be both. I don't want to get into all that because that's where it starts to get personal. But um, yeah, but for somebody to take the time to have thought to do that, yeah, there's an intention of
And
some kind. Yeah,
I've heard Kevin Hines say this yesterday too. It's like you gotta know when you're not okay and you need somebody else. Like, and it's more than one person. You can't
yeah.
put all your burdens on one. You can't lay all your burdens down.
That's why they call it a support system.
Yes, like it. Not one person wants to hear all my woes. So where you can sprinkle out the problems, or you can know I need
Dibble
to
dabble.
lay you dibble dabble. That's the word of the day. Dibble. Imagine that in the electric company show. Dibble dabble. That would be too many syllables for that show. Nobody under the age of 50 knows
50.
that references. Um,
Which, in other words, everybody watching because our demographic is 50 plus, so everybody knows what the
the
electric company
electric
is.
company. Yeah, I can hear the song now. Um, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
it's I'm human psychology just fascinates me. I think
It
in a
is.
different world, in a different life, I would have gone into that field in some way because it just like why we do what we do, why we choose the things we choose, and it's different from person to person, and that's where it gets fascinating because how the brain works, and they're still trying to figure out how that. It just
I
the
know.
whole thing fascinates me.
It really
Cause
is.
and effect, how trauma does this, and how experiences do this, and again, it's different for different people, and
Yeah.
mm, so yeah, so
Schedule
you know,
yourself some time.
be balanced, be consistent, be
Do,
intentional,
do deep work on
but
yourself.
don't avoid, but don't be dependent either. Try to find yourself somewhere in the middle. That's a big sweet spot. Um, find value, but not overly value, and make sure it's healthy value. You're not having social, you know, dependence on folks that are not going to be healthy for you anyway. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
the topic of the day from Eastern Shore Talk. So before we get out of here, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been watching. So anything new, Kathy, on the watch report?
Yeah. I was gonna say nothing because I've been in life, mode, but that's not true. Last night I did get a chance to view the Kevin Hines documentary, Stay Alive, and Channel Marker and Midshore Behavioral Health and the Midshore Suicide Coalition is going to have a free screening of that documentary on Thursday, June 26th at 6 p.m. at Cambridge South Dorchester High School. But I got a chance to watch this, do a early screening of this documentary, and it's really good stuff. It's called Stay Alive, and Kevin is someone who jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge in the year 2000 and survived. And less than 1% of people survive that jump. And he feels like, faith is important in his life. He feels like he was saved in order to save others. And anyway, he's written books and done other movies. But this is an interesting twist. This one is it's a tabletop conversation with an expert in the field and an advocate in the field, where they're really talking about, I mean, suicide is a dirty word, right? We don't want to say it out loud. I feel like we think it's contagious, and it's just scary to talk about it. We just don't understand it. So this is a really good film to help us understand the brain. We're talking about the brain. You were talking about how interesting the brain is, but how this is an interesting film that really helps us understand why someone can be in such a low spot, and why, Kevin calls it brain pain, why pain can be so extreme that somebody has these thoughts, although fleeting. Thoughts like that are usually fleeting. And then, so the documentary is about understanding those thoughts, and then it's about, how do you help people? How do you help yourself? And there's a lot of self-care in that. Kevin has this whole series on YouTube that you can look up called The Art of Wellness. And, he has 10 steps, which include things like therapy and exercise and nutrition. There's a lot of self-care in it, having your support network, all the things we talk about, which I love that that's a part of being well, period. That mental health, physical health, it's the same. It really is, to do those things to feel better. But, they give some good points in that documentary of how to sit with someone and really talk to them. Like, you don't have to be a trained professional. It's just, Jay, what's going on? What's on your mind? What's paining you today? And can I sit there with you in that pain and be there for you? What are the kind of things that you can say to someone that might just save their life? Maybe they didn't divulge to you that they had some thoughts of suicide, but maybe they had some dark thoughts, and you can help them out of it by simple tools, simple things. Because how many times do you hear people say, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to get them triggered? And I think that this film really helps debunk that, really helps you understand what you can say to people. So my viewing it was deep this week.
That's good. That's the most meaningful kind of viewing.
To learn, right?
Yeah.
And to help your.
I'm looking forward to going to that event on the 26th. I've seen
Yeah.
Kevin speak one other time locally, so um, it's always something that I learn from. Um, like you and I talked about before we started recording, I think I would gather to say that most folks that listen to him, even if they've never had those thoughts of self harm, still take away something that they
Oh,
can use in their
absolutely.
life.
Yeah, because we've
Uh,
all had bad
Struggle.
things and struggle.
Yeah.
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 And how, and I'm always so amazed at the people who struggle so deeply, but they can turn it around and have so much gratitude and smile on their face. It's like, that is a gift. And maybe
Yeah.
that is faith. And maybe that is a good
It's a
support
blessing.
system.
It's
It's a
it's
blessing.
divine. Uh,
But you
yeah.
don't have, there's hope. Hope is a really good 4-letter word.
Yeah.
How
See,
about you?
I last Friday was movie night for me, and I went and saw Karate Kid Legends.
Oh, you did? I gotta
Yep.
hear. I gotta hear.
It was solid.
Oh, you're not giving a ring endorsement.
Well, no, I mean it was solid. I wasn't the biggest fan of the original. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the first one.
I want to see it.
It was definitely a dedication to Mr. Miyagi. It was really about that. It's pretty much the same basic story as the original, just with different. There's a different kid, Ralph Macchio slash Daniel LaRusso comes back to help Jackie Chan's character, who was the young kid's instructor
Mm.
in California, who Mr. Miyagi taught him. In other words, Jackie Chan's character was a student of Mr. Miyagi
Okay.
at one point, and Jackie Chan's character was this young kid's teacher in California. Him and his single mother moved to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and new neighborhood, meets new kids. And of course, there's the kid that wins all the local karate tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
just like the bad guy in the original Karate Kid. Um, and then the same basic story. Music is really good.
I was
The
going to say, is the music good?
music is really good.
Nice.
Joshua Jackson has a pretty, and he's from, I can't remember what show. He was on one of those popular One Tree Hill or one of those shows, young adult shows back in the day. He plays a pretty significant role, and this kid actually ends up helping to teach him at one point. So it was solid. It wasn't. It didn't. It wasn't. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it.
Did they bring any of the old characters back?
They brought there's a
Cameo?
end credit scene.
Uh,
I don't want to give
okay,
away.
don't give it away.
Yes, um, but it's really cool how Jackie Chan's character and Ralph Macchio's character, how they interact, because they were both taught by Mr. Miyagi.
Now, was he in any of the other movies, Jackie Chan?
No,
Okay.
this is a brand new character that they've introduced, but it's very typical to Jackie Chan. All the characters Jackie Chan does.
Uh-huh.
He does the karate thing, but he's also very light and funny at the same time. He's I enjoyed it. It was a solid movie.
Good.
But yeah, definitely stay for the after credit scene. Um,
Okay.
it's a fun little kind of flashback. Ugh.
I
And
do want
there's
to
some
see that.
things. There's kind of this thing. Two branches, one tree. The whole thing that Mr. Miyagi was trying to
Mm.
teach Daniel San back in the day. They're trying to teach that to the new kid.
But
Um,
you never saw Cobra Kai, right?
I tried it.
That's
I
great.
watched like 3 or 4 episodes because I was never really emotionally attached to the original. So it was just kind of just like the Star Wars streaming shows for the most part. Like the Mandalorian didn't do anything for me. Oh, I did like Ahsoka. I did like that one. But all those other ones, because I was never like a huge Star Wars fan. I would say I'm just like an average, lukewarm Star Wars fan. So, it didn't. You know, I I probably liked this one about the same as I liked the original at the time. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I had a good time watching it. You know, but it wasn't.
I got to
You
get
know,
there.
it was probably 5.5. It was probably slightly above an
You didn't see
average.
Lilo and Stitch, did you?
I did not. I've
Those are
seen
great.
people post online, adults saying that they cried.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I don't know anything about it, so I don't have any reference. I don't know. I just don't know.
I don't remember the original.
Um, but something else I started watching last Tuesday is America's Got Talent. I love that show.
I don't remember that.
I think it surpassed Idol and
Oh,
The
really?
Voice for me because they do all different types of things. And
Who's
there's
on it?
always
Who's on it? The judges?
Simon
Oh,
Cowell,
he is on it.
Howie Mandel,
Yeah.
Mel B from the Spice Girls came
Yeah.
back, and Sofia Vergara are the 4 judges. And oh God, what's the guy? The host? What's his name? The host?
Yeah. It's not, who is it? I don't know. I forgot. What
Terry Crews.
is Simon mellowed out in his years?
Yeah, for sure. There are more like awesome stories and like people that like I love a good like underdog story. They're
Uh,
like just and they do the golden buzzer. So each judge and Terry can do one golden buzzer for
hmm.
the season. What that means is you automatically go to the finals. You skip all the rounds in the
Wow.
middle. So each judge gets to pick one. And
Wow.
Simon and Howie picked theirs. They were, oh my gosh. But there's magicians and dancers and just
Huh.
stand up. I mean, it's there are some incredible. Kathy, I'm going to tell you, there was a girl probably about 5 years ago that, believe it or not, was part of the inspiration for me wanting to do the Eastern Shore Talk group
Wow.
because of her
Wow.
story. And then she was battling cancer at the time.
Mm.
She came out with a singer, was fantastic. Simon loved her, gave her the golden buzzer.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't come back because her health went downhill. She was battling cancer at the time.
Oh, she couldn't go to the finals.
No, she ends up passing away. And
Oh
like,
my
and
God.
Simon like paid for her funeral and did all these things.
Oh
Like
wow.
he was really close to her. Well, then, like 2 years ago, this group from South Africa, a singing group, comes on, and that's the other thing. There's people come from all over the world, so they come on, and none of the judges know what they're going to sing. They're going to because Simon always says, well, "What are you going to do? What's your talent?" And they say, "We're going to sing," and they start singing the song that girl wrote
Oh wow.
and sang, and you could hear a pin drop. Like my jaw would, because I knew as soon as they started, I knew, and all the judges knew, and they had already all the judges had already given away all their golden buzzers, so nobody could give. But what they did was they made a special rule. The crowd went nuts because the girl that sang was probably she's probably the most streamed performance ever that's been on America's Got Talent, like easily.
Oh my
So
gosh.
the crowd was going nuts. So what they did was they let the crowd, the audience, have a golden buzzer and give,
Was
and
that
they
this
did.
time? This year?
No, this was
No.
like a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
Well, what happened was before the girl passed away, this group from South Africa got a hold of her and said, "We'd like to use your song when we go and perform locally." And she said, "Yes, no problem, go ahead." So then she passed, and they wanted to do a tribute to her by doing her song, and they were so good. Even if they had sung somebody else's song, they were going to be good anyway. But
Yeah.
to sing her song, it was like all the judges were like we were all like everybody was just it was. But there's moments like that the whole time.
Oh wow.
So,
Huh.
and it's on Tuesday night. So tonight when I get off here,
Yeah,
it
you'll start
starts at 8 o'clock. I'm
watching.
going to catch
Mhm.
that again because last week was the very first week.
Oh, okay.
But you can go on Peacock and catch up just like with any of the other ones. So
Nice.
yes, that's going to be my watch for tonight. I'm going to watch that.
All
And
right.
oh, my Love Island USA starts tonight too. So I'm
You're
going to
busy.
I'm going to start on that. Yeah. Oh, they did there's a thing on Netflix called Tadum. Did you see that Tadum?
No.
It's kind of where all the new streaming shows let you know. It was actually a show on TV on Netflix where all the streaming shows come on and they tell you when they're going to release Stranger Things.
Oh.
November it's three phases. November 26th, which is the
Ooh.
Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Christmas Day is
Oh
phase
Lord.
two. New Year's Eve is phase three.
Well, that's a lot of violence on Christmas. We'll have a
So
lot to talk about.
I loved it. It was so cool. They did that and some
When's our
other shows.
murders? What about our murders?
That's not Netflix. They were only doing Netflix
Oh,
shows.
that's right. It wasn't
That's
Netflix.
only Murders is Hulu. But yeah, all those shows, all those famous shows on there, they had people come on, and the the Knives Out movies. That's a
Oh
Netflix
yeah.
thing. They announced the new
Oh,
cast, like great cast, like
because there's
fantastic
only been
cast
two, right? Has there only been two?
too. The
They were good.
original and then Glass Onion was
I
part
like
two.
I like
But
the Knives.
Daniel Craig is the only he's the detective, so he's got to be in all of them. But there's a different cast
Harry
besides him
Potter. I
in
wonder what
all
the next
three.
one will be. They're interesting, the Who Done It movies.
This one is a whole different setting. It really really good cast. But
Wait,
anyway,
the one was called The Glass Onion.
Knives Out, and then the other one's
Okay.
Knives Out, Glass Onion
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
part
Okay.
two.
All right, all right. What
But
they didn't say what this is?
yeah, they call Dead Man Wake Dead Man or something. Go on Netflix and it'll pop up right on your thing because it's
Okay.
called Tadum. And
Huh.
basically, like you can fast forward to whatever ones you like to watch, but it'll tell you like little clips. Happy Gilmore 2. They did a new clip for Happy Gilmore 2.
Well, you know why? Because there's so much junk on social media. You don't know what's true and what's not true because this fake AI stuff. So maybe that's why they did that.
It was basically a big party that Netflix threw to
Smart.
like to premiere things to the audience.
That's
Which,
smart.
yeah. So yeah, good. I'm telling
I'll have
you,
to look it up.
check that out because it if any of those Netflix shows that you like, it'll give you all the scoop. So yeah,
Okay.
November 26th, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve are the three phases. That November one, that's right around the same time as Wicked 2 is going to be out too.
Oh my goodness, we're busy. We're so busy. We're gonna have to have shows for each one of those. Full shows.
All right, guys, we appreciate you joining us this week for Easter Short Talk. Take care, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good one, guys.